Hello everyone, myself Janisha from St. Joseph Composite PU College, Vijaypur. So I'm dealing with economic subject. So today in this fresh episode, we'll start new chapter from part B in your first PUC syllabus, that is chapter number 3, liberalization, privatization and globalization. So before going to this chapter, we'll see some introduction part regarding this chapter. So as you know that India followed the mixed economy. So what is mixed economy? So mixed economy means there is a coexistence of both the public sector and the private sector. As we know that, so India followed the mixed economy. In 1991, India met with an economic crisis that is relating to its external debt. That means we faced in 1991 what that is financial crisis or the economic crisis because of the external debt. And this crisis was further compounded by rising the prices of essential goods. That means as a result of this economic crisis, so the prices of the commodity, the prices of the essential commodities, that will be increases. This is what the impact of this economic crisis. All these led the government to introduce a new set of policy measure and which changed the direction of our developmental strategies. That means for this purpose, means due to this economic crisis, due to this heavy external debt, the government will introduce a new set of policy, that is only new economic policy. So which was completely changed the direction of our developmental strategies. Now let me move on. What is the background of this economic crisis or financial crisis? Now in the introductory part, as you came to know about that, why we adopted new economic policy, because of the financial crisis or the economic crisis and also external debt, right? Then what is the background of this financial crisis or the economic crisis? So that we can discuss in this concept, that we can discuss here. The origin of the financial crisis can be traced from the inefficient management of the Indian economy in the 1980s. Then why the financial crisis or economic crisis will be arises? Because of the what inefficient management of the Indian economy, that is in 1980s. From 1980 onwards, there is a inefficient management of the Indian economy. There is not a efficient management in the economy. So for that reason, economic crisis will be traced. And next, and also we know that for implementing various policies and its general administration, the government generates funds from various sources such as taxation, running of public sector enterprises, etc. So this we know that for the adoption of or for the implementation of new policies, programs, definitely the government requires a large amount of fund, right? But how the government will get these funds? So that funds earn from, that is through taxation, public authorities or public sector enterprises, etc. When expenditure is more than income, so that when expenditure is more than income, the government borrows to finance the deficit from bank and also from people within the country and from international financial institution. In such a situation, the government what they can do, because their expenditure is more but income is less, but there is necessity to implement a policies, right? In that situation, the government will borrow to finance the deficit from bank and also from people within the country and from international financial institutions. And when we import goods like petroleum, we pay in dollars which we earn from our exports. And also, so when we import goods like what the essential goods like petroleum, crude oils, now we will import those goods and also we pay the money that what we earn from the exports. Development policies require that even though the revenues were very low, the government had to overshoot its revenue to meet challenges like unemployment, poverty and population explosion. See, development policies required. Why the development policies required? Because to overcome the problems like unemployment, poverty, overpopulation, etc. Right? So that for the application of or for the implementation of those developmental policies, what the government had to overshoot its revenue, and also they will tackle the problem of what unemployment, poverty, overpopulation, etc. And also they continued spending on development programs of the government did not generate additional revenue. So thus, so whatever the government will spend an entire income for only the development strategies or developmental programs, then there will not possible of additional generating the income or revenue. Moreover, the government was not able to generate sufficiently from internal sources such as taxation. As we know that already the government will earn revenue, most of the or more part of income, that is through taxation, tax system, right? But due to this what the spending nature of government for the developmental strategies, now there is not possible of additional revenue, and also the government was not able to generate sufficiently from the internal sources like taxation. And when the government was spending a large share of its income on areas which do not provide immediate returns, such as social sector and defense, and there was a need to utilize the rest of its revenue in a highly efficient manner. That means when the government was spending a large share of its income on the areas, okay, and take for example defense, so that is what the areas, so government will spend a large amount of revenues, but they will not give immediate return, okay, that is in the field of social and defense sector, and here there is a need to utilize the rest of its revenue in a highly efficient manner. The income from public sector undertakings was also not very high to meet the growing expenditure. And also income from the public sector undertakings, whatever the public sector undertakings there, no, so from that also there is not what much revenue or much income earned by the government. At times our foreign exchange borrowed from other countries and international financial institutions was spent on meeting consumption needs. Not only that, our foreign exchange, so that is borrowed from other countries and international financial institutions, so that is also what spent on meeting the consumption needs. And also neither was an attempt made to reduce such profligate spending, nor sufficient attention was given to boost exports to pay for growing import. And in the late 1980s, government expenditure began to exceed. So now the export section was not concentrated, or the government will not be concentrate or boost the export sector, but we are importing the goods and services. So as a result, in the late 1980s, so government expenditure it was began to exceed its revenue by such large margins, and that meeting the expenditure to borrowings become unsustainable. So as a result, prices of many essential goods rose sharply. Imports grew at very high rate without matching growth of export. And also, as pointed out earlier, foreign exchange reserves declined to a level that was not adequate to finance imports for more than 2 weeks. See, as a result of this, what export will be declined, import will be increases in the 1980s, and also the prices of essential commodities will be increased, and also import grew fast. Along with that, foreign exchange reserves also declined. There was also not sufficient foreign exchange to pay the interest that needed to be paid to international lenders. Also, no country or international funder was willing to lend to India. Why? Because we are in the financial crisis. In this situation, India approached the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, or IBRD, which is popularly known as World Bank, and also International Monetary Fund, means IMF. So, and we received $7 billion as loan to manage the crisis. Now, India was approached to these financial institutions, international institutions. And for availing the loan, these international agencies expected India to liberalize and open up the economy by removing the restrictions on the private sector and reduce the role of government in many areas and remove trade restrictions between India and other countries. That means by availing the loan, means by providing the loans, what these international agencies, they expected India some of the changes. What changes? That is liberalize and open up the economy. Liberalize as well as the open up the economy by removing the restrictions on the private sector. And second one, reduce the role of government in many areas. And also third one, removal of trade restrictions between the India and other countries. So this is what the main concentration of these international agencies. Also, India agreed to the conditionalities of this World Bank and also IMF, and they announced new setup or new policy, that is what new economic policy or NEP. And the NEP consisted of wide-ranging economic reforms. The thrust of the policies was towards creating a more competitive environment in the economy and removing the barriers to entry and growth of firms. So through this new economic policy, so as a result, so which will provide what healthy competition or creating the healthy competition environment in the economy, and also which removes the barriers or the restrictions to entry and also growth of the firms. And this set of policies can broadly classified into two groups. One is stabilization measure, another one is structural reform measure. That means this new economic policies, so this can be classified into two broad groups. One is stabilization, another one is structural reform measure. Then let me discuss what is this stabilization measure. Stabilization measures are short-term measures which intended to correct some of the weakness or some of the problems have developed in the balance of payment or BOP, especially deficit balance of payment, and also it will bring control over the inflation. So this is what the stabilization measure. That means it is a short-term measure, and also here its main aim was to control the inflation and also to correct the balance of payment, means to remove the deficit balance of a payment. In simple words, stabilization measures means there was a need to maintain sufficient foreign exchange reserves and keep the rising prices under control. On the other hand, one more, that is structural reform. Structural reform policies are long-term measure and its aim, that is improving the efficiency of the economy. Improving the efficiency of the economy, increasing its international competitiveness by removing the rigidities in various segments of the Indian economy. So remember, structural reforms are long-term reform, and here its aim, that is to improve the efficiency of the economy and also increase the international competition and also removing the rigidities in various segments or sectors of the Indian economy. And finally, for these two measures, stabilization measure as well as structural reform measures, the government will initiate a variety of policies and which fall under in the three heads, that is what? Liberalization, privatization and globalization. So under these new economic policies, the government will approach what the measures like structural measure as well as the stabilization measures, that is under three heads. These three heads are LPG system or liberalization, privatization and globalization. So this is what the background of this LPG system. Okay students, so in the next episode we'll continue with further regarding in detail these three policies. And also in this episode some exercise questions there. Please solve those questions.